Normcore next from Magical behind them. Denon Premium, 250 to go in the Cup. He's a length on Windbright Furore. Normcore's out wider. Magical still makes ground. Denon Premium, Windbright, Normcore outside the 3. Normcore's run to the front for Zac Purton over Windbright and Magical, and Normcore won the Cup. Normcore.
Hello everyone and welcome to a very special edition of the Racing Bet video show, where we're lucky enough to be joined by champion Hong Kong jockey Zac Purton, who's been good enough to give us a couple of minutes of his time so we can chat through all things in Hong Kong racing, coming off what's been a huge week for the Superstar Hoop. Not only did he notch up his 1200th winner in Hong Kong, he also took out the International Jockeys Championship and recorded his second win in Hong Kong's Group 1 Hong Kong Cup this past Sunday. Zac, welcome to the show and thanks for giving us some of your time.
No worries. No, sorry. No worries, Tim. It's good to be on here.
It's been a while since we've last caught up, at least face to face. Fill us in on the situation over there in Hong Kong. Obviously, you guys are in pretty strict lockdown with COVID and everything else. What's it like over there as life as a jockey?
It's pretty quiet for us, actually. The Jockey Club has got us under more restrictions than what the normal person on the street is under. So we're not allowed to go to any hotels, bars, restaurants. We're not even allowed to mix with owners. I'm allowed to go and play golf. So my life at the moment is pretty quiet. I'm in what we're now calling it jockey jail, stuck within the compound, which is not as bad as it sounds because we all do live in the same building. There's plenty of jockeys and trainers here, and there's a lot of young kids. So they all get downstairs in the playground and run around. So it is all right. It's not as if I'm just stuck in the apartment and can't go anywhere. But it's far from living a normal life.
And knowing you personally, most of your week would be filled up with lunch with owners, golf, and riding races on the side. So I reckon lockdown would have you being pretty bored there. Let's chat about the week that was. As I said, it's been a big one for you. You notched up your 1200th winner in Hong Kong. You then took out the International Jockeys Championship last Wednesday and recorded your second win in the Hong Kong Cup aboard Normcore on Sunday. Big week, followed by 4 winners at the Valley last night.
Yeah, it has been, and it's been a frustrating start to the season, so it's nice that things have turned around and I've had a really good week. Last time I won the International Cup, you were here. We did an interview leading into Time Warp's win in that race. It was the last race, or the only one of the 4 international races I hadn't won at that time, so that completed the set for me. It was very nice, but to be able to pick up the ride on the Japanese mare and win another big race for them, that's also nice. It's been a while since I've been on a decent horse for them, so it was a lucky sort of pick-up ride at the end, although I initially was booked to ride her and then they decided to go with Sumion after that, which is fine. They're entitled to do that. And then he had the COVID positive or the irregularity in his COVID test when he was in quarantine. He wasn't allowed out, and I picked the ride back up and made the most of it.
Yeah, and I'm sure winning that Hong Kong Cup went a little bit, gave you a little bit of help to pay the fine you copped for tweeting out about Sumion, Hong Kong's best racing reporter as well as their best jockey. It's funny, that was going to be my next question. How do you kind of prepare for that race, thinking, how far out from the race did you think you had the ride aboard Normcore? And when did you find out you were booked for it?
Well, initially I thought I was booked for it, I think about 2.5 or 3 weeks out. And, that doesn't, at that stage, you don't do any form. Of course, you know, or you think you know what horses are going to be in the race. The international horses at that stage haven't got on the plane. So the final field hasn't been finalised, and I don't do form that far out anyway. It wasn't until Thursday night that I was actually confirmed a rider. And then once again, I didn't do form for the race until Saturday night leading into the Sunday. I try and leave doing form to the last possible moment, so it's fresh in my mind, and then I feel like I remember it better.
It's funny you mentioned our last interview being before the Hong Kong Cup with Time Warp. I reckon we've done 2 or 3 over the years. Can't remember what the other one was, but we've now notched up a Hong Kong Cup on Time Warp. I'm sure one of the other times we did it, you came out and probably rode 6 winners or something. And this time we're on the other side of the Hong Kong Cup win, but we'll have to keep them a bit more regular because it seems to work in your favour.
Hopefully the 6 winners is coming on the weekend.
Well, it's a good segue into what I was going to ask, because I got the feeling that probably before last Wednesday's International Jockeys Championship, that you were just starting to turn the corner. You just mentioned how it's been, a relatively quiet start to the season, which isn't anything unusual for you. But I feel like just before last Wednesday, the signs were there that you were kind of starting to hit your straps and get into a groove. You then came out, you won the International Jockeys Championship, you won the Hong Kong Cup, and you rode 4 last night at the Valley. Do you feel like things are starting to swing your way, and what do you attribute that to?
So I think a number of things happened early in the season. John Moore, who'd been my biggest supporter for the last 3 seasons, retired. He was forced to retire by the Jockey Club. So all of a sudden you lose your backbone. Casper Founds, who I normally do a lot of riding for, we just decided to have a little bit of a break. So you lose a little bit more there as well. And some of the trainers I rely on at the start of the season to get going early, or they normally fire early, for whatever reason, had a really slow start to the season and didn't hit the ground running like they normally would. Throw on top of that, just a horrific run of bad barriers. It just seemed like I was going to the races every week and being drawn on the outside. That made it hard. And then to top it all off, the Jockey Club has employed a fella from the Sports Institute. He's been on board for maybe the last 8 years now, and he does a lot of tests on us. Over the years, obviously blood tests, DEXA tests, VO2 tests, a number of tests. And at the start of this season, he wanted to do some other tests. After having the off season off, of course, my body was unfit, as everyone's was. And one of the tests he asked us to do was a beep test. And it wasn't just your ordinary beep test where it slowly builds up and gets quicker and quicker. This one hits the ground running. It's for elite athletes. And you had to run 20 metres up, turn around and come back the other 20 metres. And I think the first time frame was 14 seconds. So being cold, being unfit, being a little bit older, I just tore my hamstring. And that was a week before the start of the season. And the advice I received was that it would take about 6 weeks to heal and to continue to do everything I was doing, ride horses, go running, play golf, go hiking, do my personal training, do yoga, Pilates, all that sort of stuff. Because they said the one thing you can't do is let it rest, let it waste away, and then you've got to try and build it up. So I had to continue to try and work through it and keep putting pressure on it. So I've been riding through a great deal of pain through the first part of the season. It's only been in the last 3 weeks that pain has started to subside, and the hot, searing, burning pain that I was getting in there. And then the other things that were coming with it, like the cramp in the hip and the knee and the ankle, and it was just a number of things. So those things are finally starting to settle down now, and I feel like I'm not far off being back to full fitness. So that probably played its part as well, and hopefully now everything is just starting to come together at the right time, or I shouldn't say at the right time, because it's sort of 3 months later than where I'd like to be, but at least it's coming together now. I've still got plenty of time left.
I reckon
during the rest of the season.
I reckon if a bloke said to me on the first day of pre-season, "Righto, boys, line up for a beep test," I'd probably cry.
Well, I won't be doing it again. Lesson learned. And I've told him that too.
Yeah. Let's speak about the International Jockeys Championship. Obviously, a nice little fat prize on offer there. I think you picked up about 85,000 Australian dollars for one night's work. Not bad. Not unusual for you either. And another couple of Longines watches. Do you feel like you go, to another level when the big boys arrive in town? You've got all these names like Ryan Moore, and a bunch of the world's best riders. Do you feel like you go to another level, or is it just that you've ridden at the track every week for the last 10 years now, and that maybe you know how to ride it a little bit better? Because we saw 3 Hong Kong jockeys finish 1, 2, 3 in the standings. Do you think that plays a part, or do you think, nah, I've got to show these boys who's boss?
Yeah, well, firstly, there was more Hong Kong riders riding in the series this year. Normally we have, it used to be 3 local jockeys. It used to be the top 2 jockeys, the previous champion jockey from the season before, then the second highest jockey on the table at the time, plus the leading local rider. So it used to be 3. And then a couple of years ago, they decided to add an extra local jockey in. So then it went to 4 out of the 12 jockeys that are able to compete in the series. And then this year, because of COVID, they weren't able to get as many jockeys from around the world or from as many parts as the world. So jockeys from America couldn't come, the jockeys from Japan couldn't come, the jockeys from Australia couldn't come. So they really only had jockeys from the UK and France. And to balance that out, they then put an extra 2 Hong Kong riders in. So this year the numbers were 50-50, where it used to be, a lot more favourable to the international riders. So numbers-wise, we had more representation. I think that was probably a little bit more reflective in the overall results. But to answer your question, yeah, I probably I do for whatever reason seem to rise to the occasion. The bigger the occasion, the better I seem to go. I don't know why. I don't pump myself up. I don't specifically go out there with the thought that, hey, this is a big event, this is a big race, I've got to do better. Quite often, I feel like I'm too relaxed, I'm too switched off, I'm just taking it too easy, and maybe that flows through to the horses. And I think maybe I've probably just got more of a level head, and just seem to treat it like I would any other race. And over a long period of time now in these big races and these big events, it seems to have gone my way. But I do quite often have to try and give myself a bit of an uppercut and a pep talk and say, hey, come on, this means a lot. It's a big race. You got to be focused. And yeah, so she thinks she's been sneaky. I'd have to, I have to try and put myself in the right frame. But I don't know, maybe some jockeys go out there and they think too much about it, and they worry too much and panic, and therefore they're making decisions they normally wouldn't make. Maybe they cook themselves. Whereas I just seem to be the complete opposite. Even when I was riding Beauty Generation at his best, when there was supposedly all that pressure, I felt unbelievably calm and unbelievably relaxed when I was on his back, so much so that at times I quite often felt like I was sleepy. So I don't know, it must just be the way that I handle it.
We'll get to Beauty Generation shortly, but I've been lucky enough to be on track for International Jockeys Championship night and Hong Kong Cup Day, or Hong Kong International Race Day, a couple of times. The crowd there is like unbelievable. They're packed into Happy Valley like sardines on the Wednesday night. You can barely move on the Sunday, probably in excess of 100,000 people. With COVID, obviously, there's not that many on track, if any. What's it like riding under those circumstances? How different is it? Because normally they're jumping out off the rafters to get a piece of you on track. What's it like riding under those circumstances with no one there?
Yeah, it's certainly different. And it takes me back to my younger days when I was riding around the bush in northern New South Wales. So, although the stakes are different these days, and there's a bit
more prize money, I reckon.
Yeah, exactly. But it just feels the same, I think maybe because my laid back, relaxed demeanour or attitude, I sort of don't seem to worry too much about it. But it'd be nice when the crowd can come back to the track. We had a little bit of a opening there where we were able to get a few people back to the track, and they really enjoyed it. The horses enjoyed it as well. At the end of the day, we ultimately do it for ourselves, of course, because we enjoy doing what we do, and it's our job, and we want to win races. But we also do it for our fans and our supporters, and we need them to continue to follow our sport and to be able to come to the races and show their support and show their love and appreciation for what we do. And the sooner they can get back, the better it will be for us, I think. But when that is going to happen, I don't know. I can't see that happening in the next couple of months. COVID has taken its grip again on Hong Kong. We're in a fourth wave now. So maybe towards the end of this season, we might see some people back on track, but certainly not the big crowds that you would normally see, maybe towards the end of next year once the vaccine's rolled out.
Yeah, we're just saying off air just how different world we're living in at the moment, because me based over here in Perth, like COVID hasn't been a thing for a number of months. We slammed the border shut and pretty well dealt with it, nipped it in the bud, and life for us has been back to normal for probably 6 months now. And it's amazing looking at you guys over in Hong Kong in jockey jail, as you called it, basically not allowed to leave the apartment complex.
No, it's been a very long year. We had COVID first come through here in January, and we've been living with it basically all year. 3 different types of restrictions. Some have been more severe than others. Obviously, at the moment, the restrictions at the restaurants are back to 2 people at a table, and the restaurants close at 6 p.m. at night. So that's as severe as they get here for us. They did relax them there for a little bit, where you're allowed 6 people back at a table, maybe even 8 there for a while. But it's been a wave that's sort of come and gone throughout the whole season. And as well as that, we've had the kids home from school. They've only spent about 5 weeks at school this year. Haven't been able to go away from my normal off-season holiday. Can't go and do a staycation when we get suspended. So it's been a really trying, really tiring year, as I'm sure it has been for a lot of people around the world. And we're all looking forward to seeing the end of this pandemic when we can put it behind us.
Yeah, let's hope it all clears up sooner rather than later. I remember when you won your Hong Kong Cup on Time Warp, I remember they were so packed in. The Japanese media were there. There's a photo of me having to leap over the bloody Japanese media just to get close to you to say, "Come on, son." I would try and find that photo and put it up. I'm sure it hit the papers because I was about the only white bloke in the shot. Let's move on to some of your big guns, some of the big gun horses. We saw Beauty Generation retire after his running the Hong Kong Mile last week. I think he won 8 Group 1 races, 105 million Hong Kong dollars, the highest ever prize money earned of any horse in Hong Kong history. Just take us through very quickly what he meant to you as a horse, what he did for your career, and your thoughts on him going out.
Yeah, well, I think it's the right time to retire him. He certainly hasn't been the horse in the last 6 months at least that he was previously. He put in that really brave performance at the end of last season where he just got beat in the Champions Mile, and that gave us a little bit of hope that maybe he could come back this season and be able to perform at that level again. But with Golden 60 around, he was just too good for us. And, you know, he was running solid races. He was still running honest races, still giving his best, but clearly below what his best was. But he was a fantastic horse when he was at his best. I felt like he was invincible. It was great being able to go to the races knowing I was riding him. And especially with the racing style he had, it was, you know, I didn't have anything to worry about. It was just a matter of getting him out of the gates clean and getting him into stride. Then he just took care of the rest. I used to just throw the reins at him, let him bowl along, let him run the field into the ground. And he would sustain that gallop. And the horses that were struggling to keep up mid-race then had to try and pick up and run home in quick time to be able to catch him. And they just couldn't do it. He was a beast when he was at his best. Jockeys hope and pray that a horse like him comes along in their career, and thankfully for me, he did. I'll eternally be grateful for that opportunity. It's sad that the ride is now over, but, you know, there was always going to come a day when that was going to happen, and he's going to go to a good home now, and he deserves to be well looked after.
Yeah, well, it's not bad for a horse who, when he first came over to Hong Kong, I'm sure we had a conversation where we were wondering whether he'd ever make the grade. I'm sure you said to me one day, I don't think he's a Group 1 horse, maybe a Group 2 horse at best. And there he was the next season, winning about 10 in a row. And probably one of the greatest Hong Kong horses ever.
Exactly. He was struggling to win Class 2 races there for a while. And I said to the owner, and we laugh about it all the time, I said, I don't even think he can win a group race. And then, as you said, he's turned into probably the most successful horse in Hong Kong history, apart from winning the 18 races, which is an equal record. He won 8 races in one season, which had never been done before. The previous record was 7. Sets a record, 106 million for most prize money won by a horse in Hong Kong. No horse has won even 100 million before. You know, he was the equal highest rated horse in the world there at one time. So, you know, as well as that, he held 3 track records. He still holds 2. So he's got a lot of feathers in his cap, and they can't take that away from him. You don't do that by fluke.
No, not at all. Let's move on to a couple of others. You've just mentioned him briefly, but Golden 60, he looks the new king in town. Speaking of beasts, this horse looks a beast. He hasn't quite, he's got a bit to go to catch the likes of Beauty Generation and what he achieved. But he's now won 14 of his 15 starts, and he won his first Group 1 on last weekend. How do you see him? What's it like racing against him, and what heights do you reckon he can reach? I know you don't ride him, but just as an observer.
Yeah, well, it's not much fun racing or riding against him because he's kicking my ass all the time.
Yeah.
But he's an impressive horse. His biggest asset is his turn of foot. When he sprints from the 400 to the 200, it's unbelievable. And he does it on the bit. He does it so easily. And he's leaving proper, like Group 1 winning horses look like they're
stuck to the ground.
They are. He's just going past them so easy. Like he clearly is the real deal. He's clearly the best horse we have here in Hong Kong at the moment. And, the sky's the limit for him. I don't know how far he's going to go or where he's going to end up. But he's also versatile. I reckon if they ran him in the Hong Kong Sprint over 1,200, he would win. If they run him in the Cup over 2,000, he would win. And later in the season, this season, if they want to run him in the Championship Trader over 2,400, I think he'll win that too. He's just a freak. And I think he's going to end up breaking and setting all the records here in Hong Kong. He's not far off doing it now, and he's still only an early 5-year-old. So
it's crazy for a horse with just 15 starts under the belt, isn't it? Another horse that plenty's been made about in the headlines the past week is Classique Legend. Obviously, he was dominant over here in Australia, came over for his first run in the Hong Kong Sprint and failed badly. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think forgive and forget that run. He had a preparation in Australia where he's set to win the Everest. He certainly peaked on that day. That was when he was meant to peak. That was his grand final. Les British did a great job with him. And then from there, he went into quarantine. He had to travel from Australia down to Victoria, to Werribee, where he was only allowed to trot. He then had to be immunised and made sure he had no diseases or anything in him to be able to travel over here. He then had to quarantine here in Hong Kong on his own. He was allowed to come out and work. He had to be branded, so they got to sedate him to brand him. Then he was a little bit stiff in his action when he trialled. They treated him. They thought he was okay. And he had a very short time frame to get ready for the international sprint. So when you go back and you think about it, there was no way he was going to perform. It was nearly impossible. So I think you just forget that run, and hopefully they give him a bit of a break now and try and bring him back up for the Chairman Sprint Prize towards the end of the season. I think it might be in May or April, and then just worry about next season. That's what I think would be the right thing to do.
Yeah, certainly an uphill battle for him. I wish I had have listened to myself before the race, but nevertheless, another Australian horse that we saw make his Hong Kong debut recently was Master Montaro. Remained undefeated, 3 from 3 now. Big effort coming from the back of the field to swoop home over the top. He looks a nice horse going forward.
Yeah, well, that was his racing style in Australia, to get back and close off like that. And he'd been confusing us here in Hong Kong because he'd showed so much speed in his trials, and so much speed in 1,000-metre trials as well. And we took him to a 1,200-metre trial. He had blinkers on and he charged out of the gate, set outside the leader. He trialled well. David was a little bit concerned about the way he was racing, so he then dropped him back to a 1,000-metre trial, took the blinkers off him, put trick pieces on him and asked me to ride him quiet, which I did. And then he didn't get warm. He only sort of just started to warm up late, which was fine because he dropped back in distance. And then we drew the awkward gate on the weekend, and David said, just ride him conservative, take him back, slot him wherever you can, bring him with one run, which is what we did. And luckily the speed was on. The way the track ended up playing on the weekend as well suited horses coming down that middle part of the track. So we possibly could have found the best part of the track for the first race so early in the day. We might have been a little bit lucky there, but his win was good. He's a really big, heavy horse. I'm sure he's going to improve with racing. I don't know what his distance is going to be at the moment. He obviously feels like he probably could stretch out further, but he come to the end of his run with about 75 metres to go on the weekend. Albeit he was first up and he made a long sustained run, so that's to be expected. But he certainly didn't give the feel, or he hasn't given the feel of a horse that wants to go to 1,400 metres plus yet, because he can do a few things wrong. So we'll keep him at this distance for now and hopefully get another easy win or soft win out of him, and then reassess him again after that.
Shadow Hero. He's a horse that, to my eye, looks like he's crying out for 2,000 metres already. You know, first up he was sluggish, really sluggish away, and then found some trouble in the straight, but didn't quite pick up when they kind of sprinted. Similar story last start, you know, sluggish again out of the gates, and thought he found the line really well the last 100, but just looks like he needs 2,000 to even get warm.
Yeah, and we're trying to decide now whether we're going to take the blinkers off him or not. He did all his winning in Australia with the blinkers on. We trialled him without the blinkers, and he'd begun well enough in his trials, or he'd begun much better in his trials than he has in his races. And he seemed to trial well, but because he had all his better runs in Australia with the blinkers on, we elected to go with them on race day, because he started off over 1,400, which we thought might be a little bit short for him, so we wanted him to be sharp. And he dawdled out of the gates at his first run, and just he was never in the race. And like you said, he was very sluggish on straightening. He was very one pace. He couldn't pick up. And, of course, he did towards the line when he had no room. So I thought he'd be really hard to beat on the weekend, over a mile. But once again, he was slow out of the gates. It was a pretty poorly run race. They sort of went hard early and then slammed on the brake. And I had one outside me laying all over me all the way down the back straight. And then at the 600, the horse outside the leader stopped and come back through the field. Horses skittled out around it, and horses from back in the field were making runs, and it all bunched, and it got really messy, and I was getting pushed around everywhere, and he just couldn't get his wheels going, his rhythm going. But when we come in the straight, I thought he would accelerate and go, but he didn't do that. He was flat-footed once again. I wanted to get in a little bit. Like you said, it was only the last bit that he got going, and he certainly just looks like 2,000 metres is exactly what he's looking for at the moment. But because he's not beginning well and he's getting himself too far out of the races, between now and the Classic Mile, we're going to try and experiment with some gear changes and getting back through the gates. And we need to get him out of the gates. He can't be giving away a start like that all the time. Not here in Hong Kong. It's not good enough. It's not acceptable.
It's too hard.
He needs to be better. Yeah.
Speaking of poorly run races, I reckon you copped the stiff end of a stick last night on what was it called? Faithful Trinity, I think. Where I think it was Jack Wong burned up on your outside on the 100 to 1 pop.
Yeah, not only did Teton put a bit of pressure on me early, I had to let him go, and then Jack Wong come along. It was just
decided to say hello. For
sometimes you can overcome one little hiccup, but when you get sucker punched twice in Hong Kong, it's hard to get away with that.
Especially on a what class 4 horse or whatever he is.
Yeah.
The last horse I'll ask you about, Ethero. Can we get a quick update on him? Obviously, the last time we saw him, we suffered a pretty bad bleed. He's now with the stables of Casper Found. So you said you're taking a little bit of a break from. So where's he at? And when he comes back, are you going to get the ride back?
Well, I hope so. He's probably the most exciting sprinter I've ridden. It's a shame that he's had these health and injury problems. Otherwise, he would have smashed them on the weekend. He's a much better sprinter than the sprinters we've got here at the moment. But he had a bit of a tendon injury, maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, which was why we haven't seen him. He's gone up to Trong Pha to have some time off to recover and recuperate, which I think is the best thing for the horse. From the first time he stepped foot on a racetrack, he's had a number of problems. He capped his elbows. He had mucus problems. He was always, bleeding, like 3-4 grade bleed without it coming out his nose. And then obviously when it did finally come out, it was a gush, and it was, he was lucky he didn't die. It was that bad. It was as bad as I've ever seen without a horse collapsing. So it's not great, but hopefully this time off allows him to rebuild, recharge, develop, and then come back and do what I believe he can do. I think when if he's fit, healthy, and clean and at his best, there's no doubt in my mind that he's the best sprinter in the world.
Mm. Yeah, well, let's hope he gets back to his best, because it'd be such a shame if he didn't. He's got some engine. With Beauty Generation gone, who is the next horse for Zac Purton that can be your staple Group 1 horse, do you think? Who's the next horse to take you there?
Yeah, so this is a difficult question, and one I keep getting asked. I don't have anything at the moment. I don't have a sprinter. I don't have a miler. I don't have a mile and a quarter horse. The only horse I have is Exultant, who's a mile and a half horse. Mm. So it's I'm in a complete rebuilding stage at the top end. I was hoping Shadow Hero could come through and replace Beauty Generation, but he needs to find his feet a little bit. He might need a little bit more time. But I don't really have any horses coming through the grades that have given me that special feel that I'm really looking forward to. So I'm just hoping something comes along.
Let's talk about the Hong Kong Premiership picture. Moreira 51, Purton 37. That might have been before last night. You can update me on that. Where do you see things? Obviously, we've spoken about how sometimes it can take you a while to get going, but it's about this time of the season, typically and historically, where you start to fire. And, it wasn't all that long ago, a couple of seasons ago, where you chased him down from, 20 wins behind him. Do you still have faith that you can win the Premiership, even though he's got a decent head start on you?
If you had asked me a week ago, I would have said no chance at all. But obviously I've had a good week, and, Christoph Soumillon's just come into town, so it's going to make it a little bit harder to source the best rides. But, luckily for me, I've had a good week, so I've got a little bit of bargaining power there at the moment. If I can just get on some of the right horses, I probably need some unraced PPGs coming through that might be able to win a couple of cheap races for me. And then, it's hard when you don't have the Group 1 horses, because then you're not really winning the group races there. And I don't really have a straight track horse. I don't have a dirt horse. I'm just struggling across the board. So I'm not really in a position where I'd be confident to win a premiership. But because my trainers had a bit of a quieter start to the season than they normally would, hopefully now they're just starting to build, and then we can get going. If David Hayes' stable fires up and he's got a lot of PPGs there, a lot of nice unraced horses there, that could potentially, put some wins together, and I'm on some of them, then, you can start to make it interesting. And if I can get to, March and, I'm close, then, I just start turning the screw a little bit. Pressure's a funny thing. Some people can handle it, some people can't. So we just got to make it interesting. If I can get within 4 or 5 winners, well, it becomes interesting.
You're the bloke that'd sit in the jockey room going, "I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you." Between every race.
Yeah. I've been known to put a few barbs out there.
I believe that too. Hey, what's it like for you when you watch racing? This is a question I was thinking about last night. And, I'm a hockey player. And when I watch hockey, I quite often analyse as I watch it. Rather than just sit back and enjoy the game, often I'll be analysing what's going on as it happens. Jockeys can't bet. So us as punters, we watch racing with, invested interest, because we put money on the races, or we might watch it due to the spectacle. I assume it's a bit different for a jockey. Do you watch it as a spectacle, or do you watch races and kind of analyse where people are going wrong?
Yes and no. I sort of try not to. I try and watch them and just enjoy them for what they are. But I certainly sit there and might say to whoever I'm with, I'm like, I don't know why that jockey hasn't taken off, or why is he going out there? Why doesn't he go inside? And all that. I certainly make those comments. There's no doubt about that. But, for instance, watching the Melbourne Cup recently, I get more excited and nervous when I'm watching a race than when I'm in it. I don't know why. Maybe when I'm in it, I feel like I've got the control. But there's certainly that element to it.
Speaking about Australian racing, it's a good segue into my next question. There's been a lot of publicity about the whip rule, especially in Victoria. Hong Kong's whip rules are, let's say, slightly different to those in Australia. What's your opinion on the whip rule in Australia? And I suppose for a jockey who, I'm sure it's in the back of your mind, one day you might like to come home. Does seeing that almost go, stuff it, I'd rather just stay here?
It does to a certain degree, and it does play a part in my thinking, of course. And I find it difficult when I do go home and ride. I've consciously got to think about the whip, and tell myself even during the running of a race, only hit it once and not consecutively before you get to the 100 or twice, and just take your time, and then you can so you're not actually concentrating on what you should be doing. You're taking your mind away from it a little bit, which is really annoying. But it is what it is. They're the rules. You got to ride within them. I prefer the rules that we have here in Hong Kong, where the stewards just use their discretion. I find that works better. And from what the feedback I get whenever I speak to people like yourself or other people that are in the industry and do follow horse racing, you guys want us to do our best to try and win races.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's all we're trying to do.
I suppose part of that is probably what makes Hong Kong racing probably that next tier. We had a question come in about what makes Hong Kong racing stand above the rest, and is there anything within the Hong Kong racing scene you think that could be implemented into the Australian scene fairly easily?
Why, if you could take the tote back or the tab back, that would be
help.
great.
Yeah.
It'd be a big start. The Jockey Club here, basically controlling that is massive for us, because the revenue comes back to the participants and the owners that support the industry. And I think that's one of the greatest things about the Hong Kong Jockey Club. But as well as that, our racing is extremely competitive. The handicapping system is unbelievably tight. And because we have an enclosed pool of horses that are racing against each other all the time, you can handicap them more evenly. I do understand that, but you just can't make any mistakes in races over here. You make a mistake and your opportunity's gone. Whereas in Australia, you have a lot of horses that are untapped coming through the grades that have just got panels on them that seem to win easy, and the races are probably not as competitive. Our races might have 6 or 7 genuine chances in them, whereas the ones in Australia might have 2 or 3. So there's more liquidity in the market, which is better gives the jockeys more opportunities to try and ride winners, gives the punters more opportunities to try and find a winner, especially at the right price, which is the key to what you guys do.
That's what drives the game.
Yeah.
There's always so much, from the minute the gates open in Hong Kong, there's just so much going on. Whereas Australia is jump out of the gates, everyone finds their spot. We wait till we get to the 400 and then we sprint home. Whereas Hong Kong is just, from the minute the gates open, it's all happening.
I find it a little bit boring at times to watch a racing in Australia. For what you say, they all just jump out, get a spot, sit, wait for the corner and go. But we have 14 runner fields as well. And I think that creates more pressure and more competition. In Australia, maybe they should bring in a rule where you're not allowed to scratch your horse, like here in Hong Kong and in Japan. Once your horse is in the field, it has to run. You can't pull it out because it's a wet track or it's a bad barrier, or there's not enough speed in the race for you. Once you're in, you should be in.
Yep. I'm sure there's plenty we could learn from Hong Kong over here. Now let's lighten up a bit. I know you love a game of golf. I know you hit a hole-in-one recently. Take us through where you were playing, what happened. Tell everyone everything you want to tell the world.
Well, my wife decided she wanted to take up golf because she wanted to try and beat me. It's never going to happen. But we've got this bet. She's got until May until she can sharpen a game up to try and beat me. So because of that, she wanted to go out and have a couple of games.
It's not
so
helpful when you can't leave the apartment.
That's true. So it was only a second time ever on a golf course. And it was just her and I playing. And one of the pros, Sam Maltby, good guy from the UK, come past. We're playing the third hole on the academy course at Clearwater Bay. It's a lovely course. They got eagles flying around. They call it the Pebble Beach of Asia because you play around the cliffs and you got the water, and it's a lovely course. So anyway, he pulls up his golf cart and he said, "Come on," he said, "knock it in for a hole in one," and pulled out his phone and recorded it. So not only did I knock it in, I got it on film as well, which is very rare. And yeah, it was a great feeling, great moment. But when it was in the air, of course I knew it was online and going towards the hole. But because Nicole, it was only a second time on the course, like I said, she starts screaming, saying, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And I'm like, "Will you shut up? The ball's still in the air. Anything can happen, as you know. It can come up short, it can go long, it could go anywhere." So anyway, it bounced once and then hit the ground a second time and just rolled straight into the hole. And even as it was going towards the pin, I'm thinking, it's just going to go past it like it normally does. And away she went. So that was a nice feeling. It was good.
It probably tops the time where we were playing and I got the phone out to record and didn't work when you knocked in about a 20-foot putter. And the first thing you asked me is, did you get that on film?
You quickly deleted it.
Yeah, I said that's not making the light of day. All right, true or false? Take you through some quick fire true or false questions. When you first arrived in Hong Kong, you got lost trying to get to the track, even though you're living on course.
True. Yes.
Your Wednesday night ritual after Happy Valley races is to sink a green goblin on the way home, a VB.
They don't have VBs here, but they've got. I have a choice between Carlsberg or Heineken.
Oh, Carlsberg, that is a green goblin. Good Lord. You once had to tell security not to kick us out from the races at Happy Valley when I was there with about 3 mates.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're making a bit of noise. He made a beeline for you.
Well, you did ride 4 that night, and
yeah,
we're in a good space. But I think we were up on the on the walls of the mounting yard, chanting.
You're
about
to jump into the parade ring, and you didn't just have your pints of beer. You had your jugs, and they were going everywhere.
It was a good night. It was a good night. True or false? You're in charge of the TV remote in the jockey's room.
True.
What gets played on the TV? Just the races, or just your winners on repeat?
No, because you could. Yeah, yeah. Well, that takes up most of the time. But no, so there are different channels. You can watch anything you want on there, of course, which is local TV. But there's 2 channels, which is the feed that the Jockey Club puts out, which is the commentators, the parade, the rerun of the race, all that sort of stuff. Or there's another channel that just has the replay going on and on and on. So I always obviously flick because I want to watch the replay and see what's happened, and then I flick it back.
Is there any competition for that remote, or?
No one challenges me for it. No.
Can't imagine they would. True or false? When Douglas Whyte got a training license, you messaged him basically saying, "Hey mate, you're going to use me." They weren't those words. I messaged him because I'd always told everyone, because everyone said, "What are you going to do when you get his trainer's license, when he gets it?" And I said, "I'm going to send him a message," and everyone laughed, thinking I was joking. And as soon as he got his license, of course, I didn't have his number. So I sent out a tweet and I said, has anyone got our latest trainer's number, Douglas Whyte? Anyway, a few people sent it to me. So I sent him a message and I said, "Hey, Dougie, I always said as soon as you get your license, I'd send you a message. Just got your number. Congratulations." I said, "No doubt I'll be riding some winners for you next season." And he wrote straight back and said, "Thanks." He said, "Yeah, I'll look forward to it." Took you a while to get one for him, though. A winner.
It did. He never I had so many seconds for him. I think I I had 15 rides for 11 seconds for him until the first winner comes. So I was a bit stiff that I kept running second, but he was not giving me the best rides. He was giving me horses that had a little bit of a chance. But anyway, we've got one winner out of the way now, and hopefully we'll get another one soon.
2 more questions. Who's got the better golf swing, me or you?
Well, I'm like an octopus trying to escape a shark.
We don't need to post the video of my swing, mate.
I dare say you do.
Oh, rubbish. And final question, perennial question. Everyone asks this every single time, but when are we going to see Zac Purton move back to Australia? If we ever see Zac Purton move back to Australia.
Yeah, it's probably a better way to sum it up. I have had offers to come home, and they've been very good offers. And if I was to come home, that'd certainly be the offers I'd take up. But I just feel like I enjoy Hong Kong. My family enjoys it here. I like the racing. Being able to ride 2 days a week. Normally being able to travel the world during the off season. I like the competition here. I just enjoy it so far and at the moment. But like I always say, it's a type of place where one day you can just wake up and go, you know what, I'm done. I want to go home. I'm not going to say that I haven't had those thoughts. Of course, they have crept into my mind from time to time. But at the moment, I still feel like Hong Kong's where I want to be, and for that reason, I can't answer when I'm going to be home.
Mate, really appreciate you giving us your time here on Racing Bet. It's been a pleasure to catch up and chat with you once again. Best of luck for the rest of the season. We'll be roaring you home for the premiership battle against Joe Moreira, and hopefully you keep knocking in some winners for us like you did last night. Plenty of happy people after your first couple last night, especially Smart Cousin. That was a nice little one at big odds. So best of luck. Thanks for coming on, and look forward to catching up again.
Very good. Take care.